right, and Betsy Kramer's joining us today. She's running for the second vice chair leading up to the Republican state convention. And we're really glad to have you, Betsy. Thanks
Thank you for
joining
inviting
us.
me, Steve. I've been looking forward to speaking with you.
Well, tell us what part of the state you're from and what congressional district you're in.
Fulton, in Johns Creek, and in the 7th District. Been there for 25 years or 26, maybe even longer.
Well, we make a point at Editorial Interchange of highlighting local economies across the state. We don't do paid promotions, but we always love to get shout outs to locally owned stores. Will you give us one in your area?
Ace Hardware. They're actually my neighbors down the street. And I love it because my dad owned a hardware store for 50 years. And I used to work there as a teenager. I used to go there when I had my apartment and needed stuff. So it's close to my heart. I love that there's this locally owned hardware store, and I don't have to go to Lowe's or Home Depot. So that's why I like going there.
Awesome. Well, hey, look, on the convention, you're down on the ballot as for second vice chair. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you involved.
In 2009, I formally, completely walked away from the Democrat Party. I had been inching my way away from the Dems. And in 2009, I just was very alarmed by Obama's, trying to take over the healthcare. And my husband said, "Hey, you should go down to Centennial Park. The Tea Party's having an event there." So I went, and next thing I know, I was involved with the Tea Party. I went on the 912 bus ride up to DC, and that was an amazing event, and have met some wonderful people who I'm still friends with and will be friends forever, I think. And I've just got involved, and, of course I was like, I want to take over. I know I can, I was, a vice president of a bank, and I knew that I could take over, but I'm like, people are like, but you don't know anything. Politics starts locally. So I started locally, and that when in 2009, Johns Creek was not a city. So I still got involved locally, and I just learned my way up the ropes, and did what I could, and volunteered, and used my ingenuity and I'm that person that they ask, "Can you do this?" And I do it, and I don't ask to be put out in front. I'm usually the person behind the scenes and not in front. So this is a big step for me, to coming out in front of 2,500 people.
Well, let me ask you this. What skill set do you possess that you think will benefit the Georgia Republican Party?
I'm an accountant. I have my degree in accounting. I never sat for the CPA. I went the banking route. And I started the first bank on the internet, Security First Network Bank, with a whole bunch of people. And I was in charge of the back end of the front end, if that makes sense. And I worked with the computer programmers to interface with the banking software. And that taught me a lot of organization, how to implement stuff and get things done in an orderly manner, and have the outcomes that you want. We had measured outcomes, and we met them. In fact, today, if you use online banking, that was because of Security First Network Bank. That's the basis of most banks use, is our program. Not that they use the program itself, but what we did. Like if you use bill pay, that was something that I worked with Check Free to interface with our banking software. So, and I know I today still use bill pay, so I know it's around. So I've done a lot. I'm not afraid to take on challenges and learn something. To be honest with you, when I went in to start the bank, I was a trust officer at a bank. I was doing corporate trust and personal trust stuff, not retail banking. So I had to go learn that. And then they said, well, what you did really well. Why don't you go learn loans? That was really hard, but I learned that as well. So I'm not afraid of taking challenges. I work well with other people because you it's not a singular job. It's a team effort. And and it can't be something that you take, you need to be working with everybody because everybody has an opinion. So I think that I play well.
There's not a more satisfying feeling than working on a startup. I think I worked on a couple myself, and it's very, very rewarding when you take something from zero and
Yep.
really make
It
something
was
work.
very exciting. 1995 was a time of the internet explosion, and it was a great time to be making, doing stuff. Just like I think right now, I think we're going to see an explosion with AI, and hopefully it's all for the good and not the bad. And I think great things are going to come out of it. And I'm glad that I was part of it.
Well, let me ask you this. The second vice chair doesn't really have any designated duties, really. You work at the
Yes.
pleasure of the chairman. Is there any particular facet of party business that you would like to focus on as second vice chair?
The grassroots. Also, last year, I worked on Trump Force 47, but I also worked primarily with the Republican Jewish Coalition, um, talking to low propensity Jewish voters. And we did increase the amount of votes that President Trump got in the Jewish vote. And I'd like to continue with that, but also do other outreach to other minorities or other groups because we need to make sure that we're extending our hand to everybody. I think young people need to be um, brought in. I I know like my daughter was a Republican during high school and then she went to college and she got she went to the dark side, as I say. So I think we have a job to try and figure out how we can go into colleges and universities and higher ed and try and plead our case or demonstrate that we're not the terrible people that the Democrats make us out to be. I want to give a hand up, not a hand out. And that was one of the big things that made me leave the Democrat Party because they were just handing out. And I'm just like, I'm giving you all this money and I don't have a say where it's going. And these some people are not willing to make their lives better. I don't mind giving you a hand up. I want you to, it shouldn't be something that you should be doing for the rest of your life. And when I moved here from Boston, if you can't figure that out, and I had this young woman who I was mentoring, and she she was doing really well. She had grown up in the projects of my hometown, and she came to work one day and said, "I bought a car." And this is, in the 80s, in interest rates, especially for someone with no credit history, she was paying like 25-30% interest. And I went, "Oh, okay. You should have talked to me before you did this." So a few weeks later, one Monday morning, she didn't come to work. And so I literally got in the car and drove over to her house in Germantown and found her. And she had crashed the car. And she was like, "I quit. I owe more money on the car than, that my insurance will pay." Cause she was upside down on the loan. It was only like a month old or something. And she just sort of threw her hands up and said, I'm just going to get pregnant and get on welfare. And that just sort of shook me to my core that a person would do that, because they have that ability to do it, or the government was allowing them. And I that's, to me, was not the right thing to do. And it just, from that on, that was my start of
Right.
moving to the right.
Well, this notion that government will solve all your problems. There's nothing that they can't throw money at and it will fix things. And it only creates more and more
Right.
carnage. Unfortunately, it's
I
sad to
totally
see.
agree. You're actually causing more harm to those families or person by enabling them to do what they're doing. And we have the richest poor people in the world. I mean, why would you want to get off of welfare when you have a flat screen TV, you have a car, you have this and that, you have a microwave, whatever, and you're doing quite well. But if you get off of it, you're going to have to work hard to get what you currently are given. So what's the incentive of getting off?
Well, tell us, Betsy, who's the most influential person in your life?
My husband, Stephen, he's a very smart person. He 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 was one of the people that started the bank on the internet, and he's just I would say the operating system that he created on Linux, he was told by the US government, no, you can't do what you're doing. And he's like, yeah, I can. I basically have done it, but they didn't want to listen. So he went off and started his own company with a few guys. And then they evolved into the bank, and that's history. And of course he met me. But he's very smart, he's very well read. I listen to him a lot. I Not that I still have my own personal opinions. Don't think that I'm just sitting there going, yes, whatever you say, honey. I will say, no, you're wrong. And we have good discussions, not out and out fights. We have good discussions about politics and what should be happening and what's going on. So I would say my husband, my mother and father are both deceased. My sister lives down in Grant Park. So you can just imagine what she is. And my brother, he lives up in Massachusetts, and oh yeah, I guess I should call him. And he he's liberal too. I mean, I grew up in Quincy, Massachusetts, home of John Adams and John Quincy Adams. Also, John Hancock lived there. I mean, a lot of famous people. And that city celebrates patriotism like over the chart. Like I know on June 14th, which happens to be President Trump's birthday, but it's also Flag Day, they do a huge parade and fireworks for Flag Day. And I'm like, you're all liberals. What are you doing? But they're all patriotic, but why are you voting Democrat? The Democrats are not patriotic, but they do. And I'm glad. I mean, I love going to visit, but I'm glad I live down here.
What's your most cherished childhood memory?
One is, when I was the acting chairman of Fulton County, I wrote about this because it was over 4th of July. And my neighborhood, I grew up in Marymount, which is, if you go look up in the history books or like look online, Marymount is famous for some Indians and just for being part of this beginning of the city. And we have a huge parade. It's not as big as it used to be, but we used to have street competitions. And that was always my favorite time, when I remember dressing up in those candy bars, or my Cleopatra and her slave. We just did some really fun stuff. And mind you, I was a slave, and I had my friend was in my in my wagon. And wagons then were metal, sheet metal, or they're not the light plastic things like they have now. But I wrote about that, and it's always something that I look forward to. And also summertime, because I grew up on the beach. You know, we lived a block away, so I was there. I also went to New Hampshire for overnight camp for many weeks.
Can you identify some areas where you think that the Georgia Republican Party needs to improve?
Well, I think we need to keep the momentum up that occurred last year. And that momentum, unfortunately, there's a lull this year because it's municipals, but we need to turn around this summer and get each county to go out and say, no, we need to get volunteers to help in the municipals. And here are the conservatives. You don't run them as Republicans, run them as conservatives. And I did that in Johns Creek, and it was very successful. I think we need to continue that. It's not something that is bad. Also, we need to continue our reaching out to minorities and other groups of people. Again, like I'm already involved in working with the RJC, or the Republican Jewish Coalition. And we just have to replicate best practices. And I think that we need to have communication between all the districts and the counties more so than the districts, but because the districts are on the executive committee, the counties need to know what everybody else is doing. I think there are people like secretaries in each county party. They need help. We can go out and we can be training people. It's because the Georgia GOP enables counties to do stuff. They teach, they bring in best practices to help each county. Now, each county is a little bit different. Fulton County is quite different than, say, Walker County up in the northwest corner of the state, and they have different needs. So you have to be flexible enough to recognize that it's not one size fits all. And I'm good at thinking outside the box and working with a team.
Can you identify anything that you think that the Republican Party is doing really well?
Well, I think last year, and that's all, I can base it over the 16 years I've been involved, but last year they did really well with the Trump 47 and getting out the vote. They were chasing votes. We didn't wait to the end to cure votes, for curing, meaning getting the absentee ballots that come in and that need to be cured. We actually went out and we went after these people in a good way, of course, to have them fix their ballots so their vote would count, because we were not very good at doing that. And I think that's something that, God, why can't I think of her name? Up in North Georgia, there's a woman that started a program, and she really did an awesome job. And I think we need to continue doing that. We all, we got to look at what other people are doing. There are pockets of people doing stuff. Well, why don't you share your wealth of knowledge and what you're doing? And so maybe other counties can do what you're doing. And we also need to change, we're working very hard to change election laws down at the State House. I've been involved in that since way before 2020, working on that. And I think we've done quite well. Unfortunately, the big bill this past year got stalled, and it will be brought up in January when the session begins again for 2026. And hopefully we can get it through.
What do you expect from Republican elected officials as someone who is a Republican yourself and someone who has been in party politics, what do you expect from a Republican elected official when they're elected?
I mean, I'd like to see them keep their promises. I mean, people make. Let me take that back. They need to keep their conservative, be conservative in their way that they operate. I get it. I ran for office in 2022, and you know, I try to not make promises that I know that I knew that I couldn't keep. But that said, um, I think, you know, there is one candidate's like, oh, we got to get rid of all the rhinos. No, we've got to work with these um, legislators and trying to get them to understand, hey, this is what the people are thinking. This is what we would like to see. How can we work together? And I actually have a great relationship with probably 90% of the legislators down at the State House, from the constitutional officers all the way down to, you know, all the other ones as well. Excuse me. Sorry. Um, so I think it's important that
Well,
if you have relationships with them, you could have a sincere talk with them and say, I don't think you're being conservative enough. That's, you know, we would like to see you do the XYZ and not ABC. And I think that you work with them and you don't browbeat them like some people want to browbeat them. They're going to get their doors slammed on their faces.
as we approach the midterm elections, and we know that's sometimes troubling because the midterm elections often swing the opposite of the president. Um, so, what would you consider success for the Georgia Republican Party? What would be your definition of success as we head into the midterms? What would you like to see?
Not re-electing them because everybody's moving around, but electing Republicans into our constitutional offices, keeping our majorities in the House and the Senate, as well as sending, getting rid of, the big thing is getting rid of John Ossoff. I'm sorry, he's been terrible, especially for Israel. And Israel's near and dear to me. And I think that he needs to go. And I believe this is just from talking to other Jewish people in the community, that they're they're not going to vote for him because they've seen him not support Israel in the way that they have wanted to. So I think that's that, you know, big win for getting into the U.S. Senate, as well as, you know, all the other offices that we can have. And also, you know, like this year we have municipals, and I keep pressing people, politics starts locally. We have to get conservatives conservatives into local offices, because otherwise your cities will turn into a Democrat city. And do you want that? Johns Creek was just selected as the top city in the whole country. And if we lose, you know, a couple of seats to some Democrats, I'm, you know, I don't think we'd, you know, the way we operate and the way the city is will go. I think it would change drastically. I don't want tons of apartments. I want to keep this into a bedroom community. Unfortunately, we are smack in the middle of Duluth and Alpharetta, and we don't have a highway going through us. So we have that difficulty of trying to figure out where we are. And I just say, we just stay a bedroom community, saying that we're close to Atlanta and we have good schools and good parks that people can participate in doing stuff. So I think it's, you know, I there's we have a big job ahead of us, but I think we take what they have done in the past and we just keep up the momentum, and we elect Republicans.
Let me ask you about the chairman's race. As you know, it's been kind of tribal, and there's been a lot of there's been a lot of side taking on social media, and so it's been a little bit controversial. Do you side with one candidate or the other, or do you maintain neutrality?
I want to remain neutral, but I will say, and I I lean towards Josh McCoon. We've been friends for many years, been working with him. I've done projects for him. I've, you know, and it's not a secret that, when we go to a forum, he's with me or I'm with him because I'm driving most likely. Um, so I'm not shy about it, but I know if David Cross were to win, I would, and I won, I would roll up my sleeves for him, and I would hope that he would work with me. And I think that I have some great ideas, and I think being in a room of 25 people, there's a lot of discussion, and you bounce off ideas and you take the best ones. And I hope that if whoever takes over is that we can actually have a well functioning executive committee as well as a state committee, and not have people trying to do their own thing. I don't have my own agenda. I know what I can do. I, I'm that person. I was asked to run because people know I get things done. President Trump asked me to um, get poll watchers for Fulton County. Guess what I did? I had over 600 of them in 2020, and then I did it again this past year. So I'm a doer, and I get things done.
Let me ask you about we've gone in a bunch of different directions. Is there anything that we haven't discussed in this interview that you would like to tell the viewers that we haven't already discussed?
Go and blow up the party. I don't believe that we need to doge the uh, GOP. We, yeah, there were some mistakes, there are some questions, but everything I believe has been answered adequately. And yeah, if you want to see like an offsetting entry, go find it. I mean, they're 90 pages, and I'm not there. And the accounting director, she's, to her eyeballs and doing the convention stuff, because this is a person that not only does the accounting, but does everything else. She's like the jack of all trades, and she's a lovely woman. And if she was to leave, I think the party would be hurting dramatically. So one thing I want to do is I want to we all need to work together. We all need to come together and say, put whatever was said during this election behind us and move forward, because it, without that, we're not going to go anywhere. We're just going to be, backpedaling all the time. And I think it's really important that we all come together and stop arguing and saying nasty things.
Well, if people want to find out more about you, maybe some ideas, a platform that you might have, what's the best way to find you on the internet or whatever
They
to
can call
look you
me.
up?
My phone number is 404-273-9494, or text me. I have a Facebook page, which is Elect Betsy Kramer, and it's Kramer, for second vice chairman of the Georgia Republican Party. I know it's a mouthful. I think if you just put in Elect Betsy Kramer for second, and four is FOR, and that's the best way to find me, or you can message me, or you can text me. And I, I doing this, I had to put a lot of thought into it. And I said, okay, I'm willing to, it's 2-year commitment. And I'm a stay-at-home mom. My kids are 26 and 24. Is that right? I think so. And they're out of the house. So I basically I'm free. I don't work. And I think I have all the time in the world. Of course, I do say that I have my priority first is my health, and I do work out. So that comes first. And then, I always try and make room for go swimming or working out at the gym. And not that, but I've been known to say, well, this is more important. So I will definitely, I do this first and then go to the gym. But I think it's important to, it's a big job. The state is not a tiny state like Rhode Island or even Massachusetts. And we need to make sure things are getting done properly.
Well, Betsy, I'll tell you what, we really appreciate you giving us some time, and we wish you all the best heading into the state convention.
I enjoyed being on here. And if, by all means, message me or whatever, and I'll be glad to answer anybody's questions. Thank you.
Hey, we hope you enjoyed the video. We are trying to get all these state convention series interviews out to all the state delegates. So if you're in the Republican Party in your particular county and you have a email that you can send out our address to, the link for the YouTube or Rumble, which we're on all the social media platforms, send those links to your delegates in your county. It's great to have knowledge ahead of time of where those candidates are. This way you don't get into the state convention and there's a lot of hubbub about this and that and the other, and I don't know this and I don't know that. We've given you long form interviews on all of the candidates. So send those links to the people in your county who are going to the state convention. You will not regret it. And please, if you like what we're doing, like the video, please subscribe to one of our channels. We'd really appreciate it. And if you can share the content, that's even better. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.